What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome in. Welcome back. Before we get to the show, you know what we got to do. We got to knock out the particulars because that's just what we do around here. So, first and foremost, if you're a returning listener, thank you so much for the love and support. I definitely appreciate it. If you're a new listener, thank you for taking the time to come check out the Format Podcast. But no matter if you're an old or new listener, head over to Apple Podcasts or iTunes or whatever and rate and review the show. It'll really help us out, and the more 5-star reviews we get, the higher the show will rise in the rankings. So if you love it, show it. Also, if you enjoy it, please don't keep it to yourself. Share the show with anyone you know who loves sports talk. If you want to reach out, you can definitely do that on social media. I'm on Twitter at Bruce F.A. Hope. That's at Bruce F.A. Hope. I'm also on Instagram at The Format Podcast. That's at The Format Podcast. You can give me a shout there. You can tell me where I was right, where I was wrong. If you love the show, if you hate the show, tell me I'm an idiot, which I'm sure I will get some feedback like that after this show. Trust me. But just tell me why. Love or hate, I'm cool with it. I just love the interaction. It lets me know you're listening, or in this case, watching. All right. Finally, you can always email me at theformatpodcast@outlook.com. That's theformatpodcast@outlook.com. You can suggest topics or anything else you like. So now that we got that done, let's get to it. In the world of college football, we're a week away from the Big Ten getting back on the field. What does that mean for the rest of the college football world, especially the college football playoff? The mighty SEC doesn't quite look the same. What's going on? We'll talk about it. In the NFL, Dak Prescott is done for the year. So what happens to the Cowboys, and what does that mean for Dak Prescott going forward? Can Baker Mayfield keep the Browns rolling against the Steelers' vicious pass rush? And with 12 squared coming this weekend, which of the two all-time great quarterbacks who wear number 12 are going to lead their team to a win? Finally, the Lakers got the job done against the overmatched Miami Heat. LeBron wants his damn respect. Huh? And I got a list for you that might just blow your mind. All that and a whole lot more. So sit back, relax, and listen up to episode 77 of The Format. If you love college football, this is a weird year, but I guess that's like redundant, right? Because it's pretty much a weird year for everything. But college football is up and running. The schedules got flipped on their heads, and we've seen teams as a result of having to try to find a way to play do some unprecedented thing. For instance, Notre Dame playing a full conference schedule for the first time ever. By the way, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish are looking good, have arguably the best offensive line in the country, and I believe have the number 6 rushing offense so far. But we'll talk about Notre Dame another day and see how that holds up going through the season. Last Notre Dame note, because I just can't help it. For all those people screaming about joining a conference, Notre Dame football had the number 13 strength of schedule in the country before everything changed with COVID. And when they got all set up and switched to a full ACC, that's Atlantic Coast Conference schedule, right? Conference. That strength of schedule suddenly dropped from 13th to 33rd. Let me say that again for you. The strength of schedule dropped from 13th to 33rd. Just something to think about, all you join the conference people. Anyway, what I'm pretty excited about going forward, though, besides Notre Dame, of course, is the fact that the Big Ten is going to be back next week on the field. And I'm curious to see how the playoff committee, which we know is looking for every reason to put 2 SEC teams into the playoff, is going to handle the eventual Big Ten champion, which is presumably going to be Ohio State, right? Regardless, we will get to see some quality Big Ten games this year. Now, I love college football, as I mentioned, and I'm a diehard Notre Dame football fan. But I can respect the fact that other people, other conferences, and other teams play college football too. You hear that, SEC people? You might want to take a lesson. But Ohio State has matchups this year against Penn State, new look Michigan State, and of course, Michigan to close out the season. Now, you also have Michigan opening up next week against Minnesota, which might be one of the best Big Ten games of the year. We know that PJ Fleck is a legitimate program builder and has Minnesota looking real good coming off last year when they finished 11-2 and beat Auburn. Wait, hold on. We know that PJ Fleck is a legitimate program builder and has Minnesota looking really good coming off last year when they finished 11-2. And yeah, I did write that right. They beat Auburn. Wait, that can't be right. They beat an SEC team? A team from outside the SEC beat a team in the SEC in the Outback Bowl. Like, I guess it did happen. Go figure. So we know Minnesota can play. We know that. And they have a guy in Tanner Morgan who's rated as one of the best returning quarterbacks in the country. Obviously, he's not Justin Fields, who is my number one guy at the position, or Trevor Lawrence, but he's solidly in that second tier, and he's probably the best of that bunch. Now back to the Wolverines. They also have Wisconsin on the schedule, as well as Michigan State, and of course, Ohio State to end the regular season. And let's be real here. Jim Harbaugh might not be on the hot seat, but if something special doesn't happen in Ann Arbor this season, especially with all the money that Jim Harbaugh is making, he might be coaching the Jets next year. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it might be something to think about. How many times can the Michigan president, athletic director, and alumni stomach not just losing, but getting smoked by the Buckeyes? Even when the Wolverines aren't making the playoffs, if they maybe were getting to or winning Rose Bowls, if they could beat Ohio State, that can buy the coach at Michigan a lifeline. It can. We know that. But none of that is happening. And for the most part, the Wolverines are losing all of their big games. And at some point, something is going to have to happen, whether it's a new coach or some adjustment to Jim Harbaugh's salary. But for now, we'll wait to see what happens this year, and maybe this is the year that he earns it. Who knows? Overall, though, I think that Ohio State, just based on the talent alone and having the best quarterback in the conference and maybe the country, have to be the favorite. But I'm looking at the schedule, and I think that overall, the best teams in the conference all have 3 tough games, so no one really has it easy per se, right? This should be pretty good, and like I said, the biggest thing for me is waiting to see how the college football playoff handles it. Another note I wanted to touch on, as college football fans and media, etc., we keep hearing how the SEC, Southeastern Conference, is hands down the best conference and has all the best players. Now, no one is saying they aren't great, and you could argue that the consistent championships for the SEC are evidence of that. But what I've always argued is it's not definitive that the SEC is the best conference. They don't have necessarily all the best players because they don't consistently put out the best quarterbacks on the next level. And on the whole, the conference still has a lot of bad teams. They, like most other conferences, are extremely top-heavy. And the funny thing is, groupthink makes it really easy to buy into what we hear about them constantly. It just does, but whatever. So we keep hearing about the SEC being the closest thing to the NFL and how they play such great defense down south. But that isn't adding up to what's actually happening, though, right? It's like the LeBron argument. LeBron is the GOAT, but it's not actually adding up to what's happening. But we'll get to him later. Anyway, check this out. 6 SEC teams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 SEC teams are ranking worse than 50th in the nation in points allowed per game, with all of them allowing an average of 32 points or more. Let's run through those. LSU, defending national champions, Vanderbilt, Florida, Texas A&M, Missouri, and Mississippi all rank worse than 50th in the nation in points allowed per game, with all of them allowing an average of 32 points per game or more. Alabama, who is known since Nick Saban's been there for having stifling defense, ranks outside the top 40, allowing more than 30 points per game. And last week, they gave up a school record 647 yards against Ole Miss. I just want to know what the SEC apologists will have to say about that. Biggest NFL story from this week is obviously Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott suffering a compound break in his ankle that puts him on the shelf for the rest of the season after being on a record-setting pace. Now, I'm going to show the injury, but be advised it's a little bit graphic. So if you're squeamish on that kind of thing, don't watch for a few seconds. As you can see, Dak had that ankle rolled up on, and that's where the break happened. And you got to feel bad for Dak Prescott in this situation. He is a warrior, and this is the first injury of his career, and it's a major one. So obviously you hope Dak recovers fully and is able to play again. All right, prayers go out to Dak Prescott. But now for the elephant in the room. If you listened to this before, I've been saying for a long time that Dak Prescott should not be paid elite quarterback money. The Cowboys offered him a pretty decent contract, which he turned down during the offseason, all right? He thought he was worth more than the deal he got offered, which would have paid him $35 million a year over 5 years with $106 million guaranteed. He ended up playing on the franchise tag and betting on himself, which can work out. See Joe Flacco in 2012-2013 season with the Ravens, where he ended up winning the Super Bowl and getting, the $100 million plus deal, which he earned but never lived up to. But, the Cowboys wouldn't have won the Super Bowl this year, so that was an iffy proposition for that. The problem was, even though he was on a record pace in terms of passing yards and all that, the Cowboys were terrible and they weren't winning. Now, who knows how that would have played out in postseason contract negotiations? Probably not well for Dak. So my thing is, you got to wonder, how long is it going to take him, number one, to return from the injury, number two, to get back to 100%, and number three, to be able to be in a position where he not only puts up numbers, but he also wins. It's going to be a daunting task for Dak Prescott now. And I'm really curious to know that now that he has a lot of quiet time to think, does Dak wish he had signed that deal and had all that guaranteed money in his pocket? On the subject of the Cowboys, though, now Andy Dalton is taking over. And we know from having seen him all those years in Cincinnati, when he's got the right talent around him, he is very capable. So if Andy Dalton comes in, let's say the Cowboys start winning, what is that going to say about Dak Prescott? And what is it going to say about his value? Is he going to get exposed as all sizzle and no steak? That's left to be seen. Then there's the other part of this. I've been saying the Cowboys are better when they focus on the running game. And they've been, over the last 3 years, they've been, at their best when Zeke Elliott is at his best running the football with the offense focused on his production on the ground and then being successful through the air in the play action game for the most part. And it's not only me, legendary coach Tony Dungy called the Dak Prescott injury a blessing in disguise for the Cowboys so that they could get back to focusing on what makes their team the best, and that's complementary football and really relying on the running game. Does that sound familiar, Format Podcast listeners? Stop the run, run the ball. Anyways, this week, the 4-1 Cleveland Browns are playing the 4-0 Steelers, and this is going to be a first real test since week 1 for the Browns when they got shellacked by the Ravens 38-6. So when the Browns run the football well, there it is again, run the ball. Anyway, since then, they've been one of the best rushing teams in the league, and they've been playing really good football. And they haven't been counting on Baker Mayfield to carry the load offensively, but just kind of limit turnovers and manage things while they get him into the flow of the new offense. And running the football is the best way to do that, especially when you have two quality backs in Nick Chubb, who's currently injured, and you have Kareem Hunt, right? So anyway, It's turned out pretty well so far, but in the current 4-game winning streak, they haven't really been tested. Now we're probably going to see what they can do because this game coming up against the Steelers is a challenge in a lot of ways. It's a divisional matchup, which always adds a little extra juice. And uh, Pittsburgh is one of the most aggressive attacking front sevens in the league. Now, the offensive line this year for the Browns has done a really good job of keeping Baker Mayfield out of harm's way, but they're again going up against one of the most aggressive defensive units in the league in terms of the pass rush. Now, if there's anything to hang their hat on for the Cleveland Browns O-line, it's having gone up against the Washington football team, who really also gets after the quarterback. They kept Baker relatively clean. And that's something they are going to have to do against the Steelers because Baker is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league under pressure. Now, according to Pro Football Focus, Baker Mayfield's grade drops from 77 to 39 when he's under pressure. Now, that's not to excoriate Baker Mayfield in any way. We've seen it time and time again. Some of the all-time greats can be neutralized by pressure, right? We saw that twice in the Super Bowl with the Giants against Tom Brady and the Patriots. Anyway, I think that when you look at Baker, a lot of the things he got away with at Oklahoma in terms of extending plays or doing things outside the pocket when protection breaks down, he just doesn't have the athleticism to get away with on this level, being the NFL. He needs a clean pocket to be able to really have success. And so with that, I think the Steelers' first goal is going to be to stop the run so they can force the Steelers to put it all on Baker, the Browns, excuse me, to put it all on Baker Mayfield's shoulders. Again, does that sound familiar? Stop the run, run the ball. Anyway, if the Steelers can really take away the run, then they can send the hounds after Baker. And for me, what you do if you're Stefanski, I think that's where you use a lot of delay type runs to neutralize the aggressive front seven of the Steelers with that pass rush. They're always coming upfield. So if you use those delays, you might be able to really do some damage against them on the ground. It should be interesting to see how Browns coach Kevin Stefanski calls this game, though. Lastly, on the NFL front, we got the battle of 12s this week when the Packers play the Bucs. The two best number 12s in history go head-to-head. Now, you probably could make an argument for Jim Kelly as the third best number 12 in history. Unfortunately, that 0-4 record in the Super Bowl really hurts him here, but he's an all-time great in his own right. Anyway, Tom Brady isn't having a bad season, and the Bucs are 3-2, but they're sloppy, and that's not something he's used to. Coming from New England, an extremely detail-oriented and buttoned-up organization, he didn't have to worry about things like penalties or just sloppy play overall dooming him. Because even though there was a dearth of talent at necessarily the skill positions, he could always count on eliminating the small mistakes and playing great defense to keep them in games, and he just had to do his part. But when you look at the Bucs, you see there's a lot of penalties offensively, and he's still learning his teammates. He's had to deal with some injuries so far, and things just aren't what he's used to, and he's still kind of figuring it all out. Meanwhile, you got Aaron Rodgers, who's having a great season so far, 13 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a QBR of 92.5, which leads the league. His offense is just humming so far, and the scary thing is he doesn't even seem to be phased against the blitz. And we'd like to talk about how good Brady is against pressure, but Aaron Rodgers is simply on a different level this season, right? His grade, according to Pro Football Focus, is over 90 against the blitz. That is insane. With both quarterbacks, we lose kind of a bit of the juice of this matchup in that it's not like basketball where we can actually see these two match up against each other, but it still should be a great game. Okay, so if you're not a new listener, then you know some things about me when it comes to basketball, especially the NBA. But let's just run them real quick for a refresher. Number one, I am a diehard Boston Celtics fan, and I have been since the 1980s. Number two, as such, I absolutely detest the Los Angeles Lakers with all my heart and soul. Number three, I am not a fan of LeBron James, and I don't have to be. That doesn't make me a hater just because I'm not a LeBron lover. Number four, I truly believe that the 80s and 90s were the best era of NBA basketball ever. You can dispute that. A lot of people do. Okay, we can argue it, but that's my belief. All right. Now let me get out of the hot tub time machine. Shout out, big bro. The 2020 NBA Finals are over. And as much as I hate to say it, congrats to the Los Angeles Lakers, who are once again back on top of the mountain. As you know, I picked the Clippers to win it all, specifically because I didn't think the Lakers could beat them if they matched up in the playoffs. The Clippers were built specifically to give LeBron tremendous trouble by having elite perimeter defense all over the roster and great depth. But none of that ended up mattering because the Clippers didn't take the regular season seriously enough. They didn't play well enough come playoffs or coach well enough to get the job done. Now, we'll see what happens next season, especially with reports of all the locker room issues with Kawhi, but we could talk about that another time. This is the Lakers' moment and LeBron James's moment. So that's another title for LeBron. If you're counting, that's 4 now. And that's another Finals Most Valuable Player award for LeBron. That's also 4. But if you're still counting, that's also a 4-6 NBA Finals record, which puts LeBron, who some call the GOAT, and I'll get to that in a minute, at a 40% win percentage on the biggest stage. Don't you just love how we like to skip over those 6 finals losses like they never happened? Anyways, congrats, LeBron. But since we're on the topic of LeBron, let's talk about him just a little more. Because why not?
We just want our respect. Rob wants his respect. Coach Vogel wants his respect. Our organization wants their respect. Laker Nation wants their respect. And I want my damn respect too.
What is he really talking about? This is the type of BS that bothers me. Who doesn't respect the Lakers? Even if you're a Celtics fan, you hate them, but you respect them. They're the second winningest franchise in history. Yes, I said second. And before you guys start arguing that they're tied with the Celtics at 17 championships, let's reassess that, shall we? Why do the Lakers get the Minneapolis titles counted when they haven't even retired George Mikan's number? I believe he won 5 championships for the Minneapolis Lakers. Why does that matter? Because no one counts the St. Louis Hawks championship for Atlanta, do they? No one counts the Seattle Supersonics championship for the OKC Thunder, do they? But the Lakers get special treatment, huh? Anyways, the Lakers are absolutely respected. They have a bunch of the greatest players who ever played. They have Shaq, they have Kobe, they have Magic, they have Kareem, they have James Worthy, a bunch of top 50 guys on that roster. Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain. I mean, they have player after player. People respect the Lakers. Stop it. Now, LeBron, the same guy who named himself the GOAT, stands up there and has the nerve to say, I want my damn respect too. Man, miss me with that. If you're as great as you and so many others say, why do you need to stand up there and beg for respect? Did MJ or Kareem need to beg for respect? Magic or Bird? This is pathetic. But hey, this type of thing is right on par for LeBron, isn't it? So, speaking of respect, I'm about to do something that a lot of you might find absolutely disrespectful. A lot of people have LeBron as the GOAT after this title, even if they didn't before. I disagree greatly. But as I said before, he's still 40% on the biggest stage, and that just doesn't sit well with me for such a lofty title. And even beyond the finals record, because some people are going to argue, well, that's a team accomplishment. Funny how when they win, it's not a team accomplishment, it's LeBron, but when they lose, it's because of the team. Regardless, he's still got too many holes in his game for me. So here's my thoughts on that GOAT argument. Get ready. Unpopular opinion alert. After this championship by the Lakers and by LeBron James, here's my newly reconsidered all-time NBA top 10 list. And I really sat down and gave some thought to this. Number 1, Michael Air Jordan. Simply the greatest ever. Best two-way player ever. Most indomitable win-to-win in the toughest era. Number 2, Irvin Magic Johnson. Greatest leader ever who truly made everyone around him better because he didn't force them into playing in his system. He put them in a position where they were most able to succeed. Number 3, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Most accomplished basketball player of all time. Number 4, Larry Legend Bird, best small forward ever, did the most with the least physical talent, just a bad, bad man. Number 5, Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon, the most underrated of the all-time greats, the only player at the time of retirement to rank top 10 in 4 major statistical categories, the only player ever to lead a team in points, rebounds, blocks, assists, and steals through a playoff run, resulting in a championship. So racking up numbers and then getting smoked in the finals doesn't count. Sorry, LeBron fans. Number 6, William Bill Russell, arguably the greatest winner ever, high school state champion, 2-time NCAA champion, 1956 Olympic gold medalist, and 11-time NBA champion. Not to mention second highest rebounding average in NBA history for a career, just over 22. Number 7, Shaquille O'Neal, 4-time NBA champion, most valuable player, scoring champion, and one of the most dominant players of all time. Number 8, Wilt Chamberlain, a complete and total machine, an absolute freak who could do any and everything on the court. The only player to ever lead the league in scoring, rebounding, and assists. Completely unstoppable. Number 9, Kobe Bean Bryant, God bless the dead. Michael Jordan Light, one of the 3 or 4 most skilled basketball players ever. And finally at number 10, Tim Duncan. No flash, just dominated. Extremely coachable, no drama. Didn't wreck teams or demand for half his teammates to be traded so that he could get roster overhauls. Never attacked teammates publicly, wasn't passive aggressive, did nothing but hoop and win. So I know you're going crazy right now because LeBron isn't in my top 10, despite the amazing statistical accomplishments in conjunction with 4 championships, 4 finals MVPs. But for me, there's just so much junk that comes along with him. And obviously, I don't see any of these players that prime for prime I put LeBron ahead of. And that's cool if you guys disagree, because guess what? It's my list. Again, congrats to the Lakers and to LeBron James. And if you were what you and they say you are, LeBron, you wouldn't need to be up on stage after just winning a championship begging for your damn respect. So that's it for this week's episode of the Format Podcast. Thanks for sticking through it. I know I probably said some things that are going to make some people crazy, but that's cool. Don't bother me. Don't forget, if you want to reach out, you can definitely do that. But most importantly, if you're watching and you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button, lower right corner of your screen, and also hit that bell so you can be notified when new videos come out. And thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.